Welkom by hierdie week se aflewering van die Rally Ride Dagboek, 'n weeklikse potgooi wat handel oor rally ride in Suid-Afrika en die res van die wêreld. My naam is Isak Beutel, ek is aktuaris van professie, maar 'n groot aanhanger van hierdie wonderlike kategorie van motorsport. En aan die ander kant van die mikrofoon sit my mede-aanbieder en die werklike kenner van alles wat rally ride aanbetref, die alombekende Stompie Meinhardt.
Hallo, my naam is Stompie Meinhardt. Ek boer in 'n klein dorpie met die naam van Stella, 'n groot liefhebber van die sport en oom Richard, ek dink dit gaan lekker wees om met oom te gesels vanmiddag.
I'm looking forward to it.
So nogmaals baie welkom Richard by die Rally Ride Dagboek en dankie dat jy ingestem het om met ons te gesels. In hierdie program gaan ons hoofsaaklik fokus op Richard Schilling se loopbaan in motorsport, beide as 'n top renjaer en later waar hy 'n merkwaardige impak gemaak het in motorsportadministrasie. Eerstens net 'n bietjie agtergrond oor Richard Schilling. Richard Schilling is 'n baie prominente figuur in Suid-Afrikaanse en internasionale rally ride motorsport. Hy is veral bekend as 'n suksesvolle en kompeterende mededinger wat in die laat 1980s en vroeë 90s in rally ride wedrenne of destyds soos dit bekend staan valkwedrenne in Suid-Afrika in die spesiale klas voertuigkategorie deelgeneem het en is 'n voormalige Suid-Afrikaanse nasionale klaskampioen in spesiale voertuie. Richard het na sy uittrede uit kompeterende motorsport 'n reeks hoëvlak bestuursrolle beklee in motorsportadministrasie, beide plaaslik en internasionaal, insluitende as president van die FIA Cross Country Rally Commission, wat verantwoordelik is vir rally ride wêreldwyd en huidiglik insluitende die World Rally Ride Kampioenskappe. Hy was ook stigterlid en die aanvanklike hoofuitvoerende beampte van die organisasie wat vandag bekend staan as die South African Rally Ride Championship, SARRC. Richard, ja, weer eens baie welkom aan jou deelname aan die Rally Ride Dagboek. As ons sommer kan wegspring met 'n bietjie agtergrond, wie is Richard Schilling, waar het hy groot geword en hoe het hy in motorsport beland en spesifiek in veldrenne, oftewel rally ride soos dit deesdae bekend staan?
Okay, I'm born in South Africa in Johannesburg and educated here. As I mentioned earlier, I think from a very young age, I've enjoyed motor cars. And when the time came for me to have a motor car, my father told me, no, he couldn't afford it, but he'd help me. So I bought a Beetle and I built my first beach buggy. Okay. And the beach buggy let me in, well, through the beach buggy, I met a young man, we were both young, called Jürgen Hartel. Now, Jürgen is today turning 81. Okay, he did the very first roof of Africa. And in my whole career, when I was racing, Jürgen was a very good friend and he supported me on the sidelines, even helped me to prepare the car sometimes. So the beach buggy led to, well, what can we do with the beach buggy? And then, of course, there was the famous Roof of Africa rally. So that was the start of my racing career. My dad wouldn't let me race before I was 21. And then when I was 21, I made the deal. I did it. And we went to the Roof of Africa with a Beetle, and we finished 15th overall at the first event in 1970. And then I raced for many, many years. And I must say that it gave me a great deal of satisfaction, a lot of happiness. My family were involved, and I think that somebody who's South African, if you can race, and you can race in the bush, which is what we can do in this country, it's got to be the best form of motorsport, and that's why I still to this day am very keen on going and attending and watching the sport.
Jessie, toe ons jong manne was, het ons almal gedroom om met 'n Beetle te reis.
Ja.
Wat het 'n Beetle so spesiaal gemaak in daardie dae om reeds almal wou net met Beetles? Was dit 'n maklike motor om mee te reis? Het hy maklike kaarte, het hy maklike ombouings gedoen? Wat het hom spesiaal gemaak, om Richard?
I think a few things. It was a very strong vehicle. Okay. It had the engine on the back, so it had great traction, which is something important in off-road racing. I think we kind of followed a little bit in America. The Beetles were also part of the start of off-road racing there. And, you know, a lot of the original specials had a Beetle type suspension. So it was a wonderful vehicle to do, and strong. So that's why so many people had Beetles.
Richard, jou kompeterende era in rally rides in Suid-Afrika saamgeval met die opkoms van georganiseerde veldwedrenne, oftewel rally rides.
Ja,
Met wedrenne soos jy genoem het, die Roof of Africa en ook later die Toyota 1000 woestynwedren, wat
Ja.
daardie twee die vlaggenskap wedrenne geword in rally rides in Suid-Afrika. So jy kon eers aan sien hoe die sport ontwikkel en groei en al hoe meer gewild en bekend geraak het. Wat daar duidelike soort van dryfveer agter dit, of hoe het jy daardie ontwikkelingsjare ervaar en beleef?
Look, I think it was affordable. Okay. So it was something which we could afford to go and race. Again, I stress the fact that one could get out of a town and go and race in the bush, and I mean, we had the Roof of Africa. I think second event really was Barberspun, and the desert race then followed. Also, the very close community, the people that raced together. You did, if somebody broke down, you didn't race past them. You stopped and you said, "Can I help you?" Okay, and it also it developed from the fact that it was good camaraderie. Okay, but competition. Okay, I think I don't know if I've answered the question 100%. Maybe you want to ask a few questions.
Ja, nee, ek het altyd gewonder hoe kies 'n persoon of jy in die spesiale voertuigkategorie wil deelneem versus of teenoor die produksie voertuigkategorie. Maar van wat ek verstaan van wat jy sê is baie keer dit is die beskikbaarheid. Jy weet, en dit is miskien makliker om toe te tree tot die sport in 'n spesiale voertuig teenoor 'n produksie klas. Is dit min of meer ook
hierdie? And obviously the beginning it was all sorts of things, but really the buckies came via the Western Transvaal people, the Spissers, Andre Koch, many of those people. That's how it came. And of course, Toyota was smart enough to spot this was a good opportunity to advertise their buckies. And there was a guy called John Salters, a wonderful man, who then really started making the thing a little bit more of a organized events and setting some standards in that. And it grew like wildfire, really. You also had a very strong community in Natal who were racing. So you really started becoming quite a national sport. Cape Town was a bit far away, but John unfortunately died in a car accident, and I took over from him, not because I wanted to, but because of necessity. But he'd set the basis for a very good sport. And at that time, remember, the motorbikes were also racing with the cars. I often think that it's a pity that they still don't race together. It would make the costs of everything lower. And, internationally, it is the case. So I think it's something to be considered in the future.
Ja, dit was 'n era, baie spesiale era geweest met die motorfietsse tussendeur. Ek dink van wat ons as buitestanders ervaar het, of ek as 'n buitestander ervaar het, was daar was seker maar 'n bietjie veiligheidsredes geweest hoekom dit opgedeel het. Maar net ook terug by die spesiale voertuigkategorie, wat my altyd ook opgeval het is dat jy was heeltemal blootgestel aan die elemente, die modder, die sand, die reën, die klippe teenoor die produksievoertuig, maar daar was 'n lekker era gewees in daardie tyd wat die spesiale voertuie kategorie kon meeding met die produksievoertuie, en daar was 'n goeie tweestryd gewees. Het dit spesiaal soet gesmaak elke keer as julle die produksie ouens bietjie kon laat les op sê, en wat is jou herinnering
baie lekker. Okay. As you know, Bix and myself are close friends, okay? And, when things grew, and then, between Bix and a guy called Klaus Degener, they brought the first cars from America in. And that was a turning point, because then all of a sudden, those 4x4 Nissans and the Toyotas, they couldn't keep up with the cars. But as you see today, we're no longer, we were much more based on American type racing in those days. Today, we And I think I'm, to a large degree, the reason for it. We're aligned ourselves much more with the Dakar type rules.
Ja, ja, net dit is nogal opmerkbaar. Miskien gepraat van Amerika, was daar ooit 'n hinkering geweest vir ouens soos jouself en Bux en Klaas Dekener om dalk in Amerika te gaan deelneem
No,
in spesiale voertuie?
Buxie and myself raced a lot in America, where we had a great friend, fantastic man called Rick Scalzo, and Buxie and he used to fly from here. We'd meet in Los Angeles, south of Los Angeles. We'd prepare the car. We'd go racing, not always together because sometimes I'd go alone or he'd go, and then we had a lot of fun. We invited Scalzo to come to South Africa, and he taught us a few lessons. Okay, he could drive. He did the Maverick King race, well, it was that man gave Bux and myself and a few other people a wonderful opportunity to get to know South Africa, the American racing. I was fortunate. I did well. In fact, I was one of the first Protea color people. Okay, I would have liked to have had the other one beforehand, but I became a Protea as a result of racing in America. So it was done, and it is. I think what happened here is South Africa manufacturers saw the value of now racing in this off-road series. So that also brought money with it for them, to help. And guys like Hannes, he was very good. Hannes, and there was Oppie Reinecker, as you all would know, and that a lot of guys that were very good too. Philip Milan, but that's what the American side was. Of course, we must not forget that Chanel's success, starting in the Dakar and racing overseas, has led to a lot of good and a lot of the facts that we today are more European aligned than America.
Ja, dis baie interessant. Net een vragie terug net by Amerika. Was dit 'n maklike oorskakeling? Is hulle tipe terrein en voertuigregulasies baie dieselfde gewees?
Very simple. They did one thing, which was they didn't have any route marking or no route book, nothing. Okay, but they'd spend a week beforehand going across the route. Okay, then they'd know it almost off by heart. Okay, and we went there, and funny enough, we took Richard Leake, came with us, and we tried to make pace notes and that, but it didn't work. It didn't matter. We were very fortunate. When there was areas where they couldn't go and pre-run, as they call it, we would shine. We'd be as fast, if not faster than them, because we were used to coming across the unknown. The other thing was Bux and me, in a way, financed our racing because we'd buy a car and then bring it here and sell it. Okay, and that was how the thing grew. Okay, and as I said, we're still very good friends, but it was a wonderful time. I mean, we took our families there. They saw America. We saw. I mean, I suppose I can say it. Bux and me were smuggled into Mexico. Race the bar. and we did well, well, we just looked very innocent when we came out, So, before the days of today with the walls and all those things. So yes, America was a big attraction, and it was. You learnt a lot having raced in America. You learnt a lot. They were much harder on the cars than we were, and we never realized quite what those cars could take. So
Richard, dis is wat ou alles sal doen om te kan reis. Al moet jy ingesmokkel word in 'n land. Maar as ou net kan reis dan
and it doesn't matter. We didn't have insurance. We had nothing. We had a funny license that was just, you've got a license, tick next. But I do remember something very, very clearly. The guy that did the scrutineering had been very badly burnt. And it was a message to all of us to wear proper overalls and be careful of fire. And I still thought, oh, there's a funny way of getting people to understand, wear fireproof and be careful in our sport, because, there's a lot of fuel we carry in these cars, or carried. Yeah, that was America. It was a great time.
As ons nou 'n bietjie kyk terug op plaaslike bodem, en spesifieke wedrenne, die Roof of Africa staan baie uit in jou loopbaan.
Ja.
En daardie wedren het ook 'n groot rol gespeel om rally baie gewild te maak in Suid-Afrika. Richard, jy het daardie legendariese wedren 3 keer gewen met 'n driekuns tussen 1990 en 1992. En wat my interessant is dit was elke keer met 'n ander navigator gewees en ook in verskillende voertuie. Wat is jou blywe herinneringe van daardie Roof of Africa wedren en wat is die hoofbydrae wat die wedren so uniek en gewild gemaak het en jou sukses daarin?
Well, as I said, the first race I ever did was the Roof of Africa, and I finished it. And then it took a long time to go again and finish one. But I'm one of the people that gets a lot of pleasure out of preparing and working on cars. So I still do it to this day. At the moment, I'm rebuilding a 1963 Porsche, but I prepared my car myself. I think off-road racing taught you some good things in life. Don't give up. Keep going. Keep going. And well, I'd come a third and a fourth and a fifth, and then I kind of followed with Bixie. He had already got his race car, and I went to America and I built a Chinner. And I did a year and learned about the car. And then, well, said about it, and then I was at my partner, in fact, at our business was Fred Levesque. We won the desert race that year, and then we won the Roof, and we won some other race. But of all the races, to me, the Roof of Africa was by far the biggest challenge. The distance, the heights, the conditions, the having to drive within the limits of the motor car and being able to repair it if something happened, because we got to places where there was no service crew. You went and slept overnight next to the road, okay, as with the desert race. And it's also, Lesotho is a beautiful country. I can't emphasize how nice it is when you're racing. Okay, you don't have much time, but you get and you see things which are so nice. And our country is so varied. But the Roof was always in spring, early spring, and you used to come down the mountain on this path, you'd see these very green willow trees next to the rivers, and then you'd get through the damn river if it wasn't flooding out and kept going again. And as you can see, I had Fred, and then I had a guy called Robbie Walk. And my last one was a guy who lived in the city. Okay, his name is Ashley Thorne, and he had a store in Roma. So that was I think he had a second nature. He knew exactly where to go in the Roof. But he was a wonderful man, very, very close to me. We talk a lot. And maybe not enough, unfortunately, but the Roof was the mother of all races, and that was the one to win. It's, to me, much more important than winning any championship. So, and I think to most people that did win it. Okay, so yes, that was preparation. Don't give up and race within your own limitations to make sure you don't break the car too quickly.
Julle het 'n klomp challenges gehad in julle dae. Soos oom nou sê, oom hulle het self aan die motorkar gewerk. En julle het nie, vandag is ons bederf. Ons het lekker service crews en groot trokke met klomp parte. En julle moet seker 'n goeie beplanning gedoen het om deur alles te kom, en dan moet jy slaap, en dan het julle nog vroegoggende, julle vat weggespring het in die
and we only had 2 hours. We had 2 hours to prepare the car. Then it was impounded. Okay. An interesting thing was when Brooks and me went to America, people that couldn't believe it, that we knew how to change a CV. They look, what do you mean? No, no, we'll change the CV quickly. They couldn't understand that we could fix and repair our own cars and build them. They were already way ahead of us, let me tell you, in terms of service crews and backup and all that.
Ja.
So again, it's a bit of a boermaker plan, but it's a good thing to have, and I believe. Okay, so that was. I still wish we could have a roof, but Isak, the reason it can't happen is there's just no more roads which aren't tarred or graded left. It's not possible. Those beautiful old roads, that's gone now because of the inland growth in the country. They've had to repair the roads. Whereas for the motorbikes, they can use the tracks and that. And that's the reason. And I mean, as you know, amongst the biking people, it's still a very highly regarded event.
Ja, nee, dis baie interessant. Ek was gelukkig geweest om verlede jaar met die roof te wees met die Hart and Dero en ja, die skouspelagtig mooi. Baie indrukwekkend. Jy het genoem van die Toyota 1000 woestynwedren,
Yes.
wat natuurlik baie anders is as die Roof of Africa, en waar jy ook baie sukses by behaal het. Wat was ja, hoe moes jy aanpas na daardie wedren toe? Wat was die groot verskille en hoe het jy ook daar sukses behaal? Was dit dieselfde resep geweest?
Very much so. Pace yourself, prepare the car well, because I mean, the Roof of Africa rocks and the desert race is deep sand, and there's some pretty fast stuff too. So very similar. Okay. The desert race has got its own enigma. You know, the original race, I did the original race, which was in Botswana. Then there was all the problems with politics and that. So then the race moved to Vryburg, and that was John Salters, and he did a fantastic job. And we went to places. God, I remember we slept next to a road in the middle of winter. We froze. Okay. We got up in the morning, started the car to warm ourselves up. Okay. Then you put fuel in, then you must drive all the 500 kilometers back. You know, so much fun. Really doing things properly. I was racing with my friend Jürgen. We had a Beetle at the wind. We went back to a Beetle from a single seater, and we had a nice hot Golf engine in the back. I used to race the other Beetles and then try and beat some of the Buckies too in a Beetle, and that used to upset the Bucky owners a lot because there was this quick Beetle that used to come. So the desert race has its own recipe. I think today it's become. I think we're just so lucky that no one's been hurt. And when I say I'm talking about spectators and that. It's just very, very difficult to control. I'm pleased I wasn't responsible in the latter days. It's just become the social event of the year in Botswana, and so you have a real big crowd control problem. I also learned a lot there. We'll talk about it maybe a bit later. That negotiating with how to get money for the races. Okay. The desert race is a big tick and something to keep in mind for. We don't have to go there. I think we can race just as well. They did it very well around Uppington and some other areas, but we also have to respect the farmers. You know, we can't destroy their road. It's very important. I'm just going to stop and say, you know, sometimes I kind of look and I think, we're asking for trouble here, but fortunately, we still have a good relationship with the farmers.
Yeah,
we don't realize how lucky we are that they allow us to race.
Ja, nee, Stompie, jy kan baie seker daarvan vertel, weet, met jou betrokkenheid by roete uitleg en die verhoudings met die landeienaars, want ja, dit is soos Richard sê, weet, al die resiese word op of meestal op privaat eiendom, privaat land gedoen, en ons het maar die goedgesindheid nodig van die grondeienaars.
Ja, iets as ek kan byvoeg. Ek moet ook daarom sê, ek is nou 'n boer myself en Ons boere is baie lief vir die sport. Onthou net, as ek nou ietsie kan invoeg, ons gebruik die brands waarmee die ouens reis op die stadium.
Ja.
Ons is om die bruisvleisvuur ook onder kompetisie, want ons wil hê daai brand moet wen of Toyota of Ford of Nissan of wat ook al, en ons gesels ook lekker in en ek is seker daarvan daar's ouens wat onder mekaar 'n bet of 2 maak die dag voor die reis om te sê wie gaan wen en wie nie, en ons is baie lief vir die sport. Oom Richard, en ons probeer ons bes om altyd vir julle 'n plekkie te maak, en ons hoop ons kan dit nog lank doen. En die jong klomp leer ook dat hulle dit kan aanhou met dit.
Castrol was very clever when they decided to go and sponsor the Barber Spun race, and they did very, very well out of that sponsorship. So, and as you said, there's a good commercial reason to it, and that's the basis of making the sport successful. Must share.
Dis ongelukkig al wat ons tyd het in vandag se aflewering van die Rally Dagboek. Sluit weer aan by ons volgende week waar ons gesprek voortsit met Richard Schilling en bietjie ingaan in sy loopbaan in motorsportadministrasie en die werklike impak wat dit gemaak het in die bevordering van die sport, nie net in Suid-Afrika nie, maar ook wêreldwyd. Tot volgende week van my Isak Bytel en Stompie Meinhard. Groetnis.